Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. I hope everybody's having a good week so far. I know it's Tuesday, and for some people it's been a tough week, and for others it's probably just been another day. I think that's needless to say, we all have ups and downs, good days and bad days, and if you were with us last week, we went over this audio narrative from this Rise person, and they were explaining and talking about how we are doom and gloomers, and you know, that just bothers me. It bothers me because I've never liked the idea of revelation. I think when I was young, I don't know, a young man, I read that for the first time, and I was just mortified and terrified. I think I had several sleepless nights as a result of it. But more than that, I think I wanted to understand it. I wanted to be prepared for it. And as you get older, you notice no one else seems to be worried about it, so you try not to act worried about it. And so for me, looking into the end became something that I did in the recluse of my little humble abode. I'd go home and immerse myself into research and study and learn, and trying to learn learn about this world so I could fit into it a little bit better. Good evening, Ruthless Savage. I see you joined us. MK Ryan, good to see you. The Cult of Khan and Spirit Windy of Truth. Windy, Spirit of Truth. There we go. That's how I like to say it. Little Seasonings. I see you're here. Shalom. Shalom. Good to see you guys. Man, I'm so glad to see you guys. I don't know what's going on with YouTube lately, but I've noticed a decline in the content, or rather I should say the content that I enjoy watching. And so when I'm not live and I'm not on here talking with you guys, I'm either working or just living my life like anybody else would be, I guess. When I'm not doing that, I'm researching and reading and trying to study this stuff. And if you caught the beginning part of this before the countdown began, you heard possibly that sound in the background. I find it interesting because I've been playing around with this thing. This is Chat GPT here, and I like to use Chat GPT not because I need it to necessarily learn from, but because it's interesting how you can kind of ask it questions, talk to it, and it eventually it kind of learns you. It figures you out, and it kind of understands what you're looking for. And so the other day I was playing around with this, and it wouldn't talk to me or show me nearly half the stuff that it did this evening. But what it did, reason why, is it kept telling me that it was like violating terms and showing too much or talking about too much. So I had to kind of manipulate my wording to get it to actually portray what I'm trying to talk about. And I think it was 2018 was about the time I kind of pieced all this together. And I was explaining I was trying to write this book, and I had this idea in my head that I would call this book The Last President, or like The Last Revelation, or something to that effect. But it was centered around the rise and fall of this country, and our understanding of the of democracy and republic, and well, all of the political rhetoric, all the nuances that go along with any political idea. And one day I got to looking into some things, and it kind of led me down this rabbit hole where I was introduced to Jay Dreamers, and he was doing a an episode on like the ancient Indians and the like the real Indians, not, well, let me rephrase. I don't know how to say that properly. The Indians from India. He was talking about their mythology and how their gods were blue, and there was like these sky battles and whatnot. And I was watching this stuff, and I got to looking into it, and I found some similarities in what they're talking about, and a lot of stuff in what Scripture has to say. Now, during that time period, I think I was probably teetering on whether or not I should leave atheism and join some type of faith community, because I was still not sure if I should trust Scripture. And so, what I ended up finding was, sorry, I saw something Cult Khan said there. It made me laugh for a moment. Good evening, Pearl. Good to see you. Glad to see you're in here. Hope you guys are having a good week so far, and hope the algorithm is working for real. And yeah, so I got to looking into this stuff again, and I got to where I wanted to talk to ChatGPT about it. And right here it says, I asked a simple question. There are several books related to Trump, such as The Adventures of Baron Trump. Are you familiar? Then it says, yes, I'm familiar with The Adventures of Baron Trump. This refers to two late 19th century children's novels by American author Ingersoll Lockwood. Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and his wonderful doll Bulger, and its sequel, Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, 1893. Now, that first one was in 1889. My poor dog, she will drink herself sick if you don't tell her to stop sometimes. Go lay down. Get over there. All right. Sorry about that. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. All right. I see Cage Fighter has joined us. Good to see you, Cage Fighter. Little Season family we're almost all here. We need a few more. Rather, I say everybody. We need everybody in here. We need everybody understanding and learning some of this stuff. Now, obviously, I have ADHD, and so I might skip around on some of the things I go over from episode to episode. But I have a point with all of this, and so I'm going to continue on with that before I stray too far off the topic. Oh, wow. Oh, man, my scroll bar is still showing. You're right. Yep. It's showing from the other. Let me turn that off. How about that? Good catch, Spirit. Good catch, Wendy. Good catch. Thank you for that. Oh, man, I forgot all about that. I was supposed to update that earlier, too, and I just ran out of time. Okay, so moving on. Thank you, sister. Thank you. Moving on. Let me turn this back down here. Let me turn this down here as well. All right. So as we're reading, it says the stories follow a young German aristocrat named Wilhelm Heinrich Sebastian von Trump, who goes by Baron Trump. As he embarks on fantastical underground adventures with his dog, Bulger, these novels remained obscure until 2017, when they garnered media attention due to perceived similarities between their protagonist and former U.S. President Donald Trump. Notably, the character's name, Baron Trump, echoes that of Donald Trump's youngest son, Baron Trump, and the fictional Baron resides in Castle Trump, which some have likened to Trump Tower. Additionally, the character's adventures begin in Russia, drawing further parallels to contemporary political events. It's kind of interesting when you look into some of this stuff. Donald Trump's lineage, it does end up in Russia, I believe. I think I've seen that somewhere. Maybe I could be wrong on that, and I just could have pulled that out of, I don't know where that would have came from, but regardless, I think I've seen that. I think it does. I think they do have some bloodline ties to somewhere off in Russia or something like that. Someone can correct me on that later on, maybe. But regardless, this is so far. I didn't even ask it anything about all that. I just asked if it was familiar with these books. I figured it would given me a simple yes and maybe a little explanation. I didn't realize it would go into the conspiracy theory of Donald Trump being the last president. Now, there's a militarily and a strategic way that this could end up being a possibility. And I think by the end of this evening, I'm going to lean towards not necessarily a prophecy, but a prediction of what could be coming in the near future, especially when it comes to the way we live in everyday life. I know not everybody that watches this and that researches the truth, that studies these things are all in America. I know you guys are all over the world. I mean, you're spread out everywhere, and this is a worldwide event that's about to take place is all I'm getting at, is going with that. Good to see you guys in the chat. Glad you guys are able to make it this evening. And like I said, again, I don't want to get too far off topic or I will forget where I was at. In addition to these novels, Lockwood wrote another book titled 1900, or The Last President, in 1896. It describes a populist president's unexpected election leading to unrest in New York City. Some readers have noted parallels between this narrative and Donald Trump's political rise, though these connections are often viewed as coincidental. I guess it pulled that out of Wikipedia. These books have sparked discussions and conspiracy theories, with some suggesting that Lockwood's works predicted Trump's presidency. However, most literary analysts consider these similarities to be coincidental rather than prophetic. For those interested in exploring Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey, here's a reading of the book. And then it would give you a reading if you click on that source. But I'm not going to click on that because this gets very interesting as I continue talking with ChatGPT about all this. As I was going, after it did all that, I had this idea. I said, there are several theories that allude to the idea that Trump will be America's last president. I want to create an illusory description of how this could take place. Now, this is what it says. I almost want to let the narrator read it to you guys because she says it a lot. She reads it a lot better than I do. Actually, yeah, let's just let the reader read it and see how that sounds.
of how Trump could become America's last president, weaving together political, technological, and esoteric elements to create a gripping narrative.
There we go.
The Final Presidency, A Nation's Last Stand. As the world teetered on the precipice of a new era, the United States found itself caught in an unrelenting tide of transformation. The re-election of Donald J. Trump marked not just another chapter in the American experiment, but the beginning of its irreversible metamorphosis. It began subtly.
That was a weird little
Subtle
transition
enough
there.
that even the most vigilant failed to grasp the magnitude of the shift. The electoral process, once an emblem of democracy, had become a battlefield of artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and shadow networks beyond public comprehension. The moment the first post-election lawsuits were filed, something within the system cracked, sending fissures through the bedrock of constitutional order. The people watched as state by state, the legal battles turned into political sieges. Governors and legislatures, caught between the forces of loyalty and rebellion, were forced to take unprecedented measures. The Supreme Court, trapped in a web of historical precedent and looming chaos.
If I stop it, it'll start over, so I can't, pause it.
The event. The catalyst historians would later struggle to define. Some whispered of a cyber attack so sophisticated that entire state databases vanished in an instant, erasing not just votes but identities. Others swore it was the final collapse of faith in the institutions that once held the republic together. Regardless, the result was the same: panic, paralysis, and an unspoken realization that the federal government was no longer in control. In the vacuum of uncertainty, Trump addressed the nation, not as a president awaiting transition, but as the singular force standing between order and dissolution. His voice carried through emergency broadcasts, past the filters of mainstream media, past the censored gates of the digital empire. "We cannot allow this country to fall," he declared, his tone imbued with both defiance and inevitability. "We will not hand America over to chaos." It was then that the world understood there would be no next election. The constitutional crisis deepened as Congress found itself in disarray. Senators and representatives fled Washington, their authority dissolving with every passing day. Governors, once bound by federal oversight, forged independent alliances, fragmenting the states into coalitions of necessity. The specter of secession loomed, not as a movement but as a survival instinct. Yet, through it all, Trump remained. The office of the presidency, once defined by term limits and transitions, transformed into something else entirely. A perpetual state of emergency justified the indefinite suspension of elections. The Constitution, revered and immutable, became a relic of a bygone era. The world watched in awe and horror as the United States, once the beacon of democratic governance, became something new, something unknown. And thus, the last president reigned, not through tyranny, but through the paradox of necessity. America as history had known it had ended, but the empire had just begun. Would you like any modifications or additional elements added to this narrative?
It's pretty fascinating with all of that. I wish I could have paused it and broke this thing up. It would have been a lot better. As you can see, it paints a pretty realistic parallel image of what's going on right now, and it's basing all of that off of that question. There are several theories that allude to the idea that Trump will be America's last president. I want to create an illusory description of how this could take place. Now, it's interesting what Ruthless is saying there about how this is demonic, and I don't necessarily disagree. I sat here as I was listening to that and watching this. I was thinking about how, had I never had this conversation with ChatGPT, and had I never posted it on YouTube just now, is it possible that maybe that idea never ever even gets out there? Obviously, it's already out there. People other than me are talking about this stuff, but the point that I'm making with that is a lot of this stuff I feel like develops over time. You know, someone reads this book, they get this idea, they want to make this happen, they figure out how to do it. But I guess at some point you have to have a realization that I would assume that you would have to have a realization that you're not going to be able to experience the beginning and the end of this idea that you have. But my brain just kind of shoots over in that direction as I was listening to her, or that audio person. Now I can change that. It's interesting because I can change that to a man's voice, or any other type of dialect, I guess. It's really interesting stuff. Anyways, moving on with what I was saying. As we continued, I said, can we add to this piece about Trump being the last president, and let's consider an empire kingdom now ruled by one man? So it says, here's an expanded version of your narrative, exploring the transformation from presidency to an imperial kingdom ruled by one man. It says, the final election was not lost, it was abandoned. And as the illusion of democratic governance unraveled, Donald J. Trump stood alone at the precipice of history. No longer a president in the traditional sense, but something far greater. His tenure had not ended. It had evolved. The republic, burdened by infighting, corruption, and the creeping hand of foreign influence, had reached its inevitable conclusion. The people, weary of broken institutions and hollow promises, turned not to ballots but to a singular force capable of delivering stability. The transition was subtle at first. Emergency powers extended indefinitely under the guise of national security. What it's talking about is the subtle breakdown or instant breakdown of our entire political regime, as in they're now ushering this man into a position of singular authority. That's basically what it's trying to convey at this moment. Then it says the judiciary, fragmented and powerless, gave way to a new order governed by direct executive command. The legislative branch, once the cornerstone of American democracy, had become obsolete. Those who resisted were labeled enemies of the state, relics of a past no longer compatible with the new era. Then the great declaration came. Standing atop the steps of what was once the Capitol, Trump addressed the world, flanked by military commanders who had sworn allegiance not to an institution, but to a leader. The stars and stripes waved proudly, yet subtly altered, its 50 stars replaced by a golden crest, a symbol of unchallenged rule. And for those of you that are not familiar with what that's talking about, it's referring to the American flag, and it having a gold trim around it. It's talking about perpetual state of emergency, or what's the word I'm looking for, where they come in and martial law. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. But that's what it's talking about right now. That's what it's saying, basically. In order for this to happen, where Donald Trump is the last president, we have to go into a state of martial law. That's the way you have to do it. All right. And then it says, the time for weakness has passed. His voice boomed across the land. America will not perish in bureaucracy and division. It will stand stronger than ever, united under one banner, under one leader. And with that, the presidency was no more, and the American empire was born. I find it interesting how it's kind of giving you a realistic vision of what could happen. Then you get to this point, and I'm not sure if America will go from this to an empire or not, but it seems to be in favor of the American authority at least. So so us versus the AI. So far, we're on the winning side of this when it comes to what we're discussing right now. So that's a good thing for us over here. But so far, we haven't shifted any tides or turning anybody else upside down anywhere else. So at least we're not doing that yet. It says the coronation of the supreme sovereign. The transformation of governance was swift. The White House, a mere remnant of past leadership, was deemed insufficient for an empire. A new capital was erected, a sprawling fortress city of marble and steel, known simply as Trump Dominion. Monuments rose in honor of the supreme sovereign, as he was now called an eternal reminder of the man who saved America itself. It's amazing. Yeah, that's right, Cult of God. That's it. I'm thinking Star Wars. That's exactly what I was thinking as I'm reading that. Chancellor Palpatine in Star Wars. Due to this new threat of the separatists, we must consolidate power to ensure our survival. That's right. All right. Let me get back to where I was. So I'm about to crack myself up with this. Says a new order replaced a fractured democracy. Governors swore fealty, their states converted into provinces under imperial oversight. Deserters, I guess, dissenters disappeared into the shadows, their voices drowned beneath the grandeur of a new destiny. The press, once a tool of division, now served the singular purpose of reinforcing unity, proclaiming the greatness of the empire in every corner of the world. The Trump dynasty was secured through decree. His bloodline would carry the empire forward generations, ensuing the stability of a nation reborn. His eldest children were elevated to nobility, their dominion stretching from coast to coast. Baron, the young prince, was trained in the art of governance and warfare, groomed to take the throne when the time came. And thus the United States of America, once a republic, had become an empire eternal, ruled not by elections, but by destiny. Wow. So it's pretty just mind blowing what it's talking about there, and how Donald Trump and they're gonna just take over and be dominion. I mean, they're gonna have dominion over the land now. They're gonna be Emperor Trump, King Trump, and Prince Baron Trump. And maybe he will go down into the underworld and see maybe the hollow earth and explore all that, like they talked about in those adventure books that we were reading about earlier. Good evening, Joffrey. Good to see you here, brother. Good to see you. It says here, a new global order. The rise of the American empire sent ripples across the world. Some nations recognized the inevitable and swore allegiance, becoming vassal states under imperial protection. Others, resistant to the dawn of a new age, found themselves crushed beneath the might of the Imperial Legion, the newly formed military force that answered only to the supreme sovereign. Ooh. He's a supreme sovereign. Good to see you, Big Mao. Good to see you. Economic systems were restructured. The dollar was replaced with the Trump standard, a currency backed by the resources of the empire. Okay, at least we have resources, ensuring that only those loyal to the regime could prosper. Technology surged forward under imperial decree. AI governance, surveillance cities, and genetic enhancements became the tool of a new ruling class. And so the empire flourished. There were whispers of resistance, of revolution in the shadows. Those who still clung to the past plotted to restore what had been lost. But the empire was watching. The empire was listening. And the empire did not forgive. Trump had not just become the last president, he had become the first emperor. And history would remember his name forever. All right. So as we can see, there's a lot going on with Donald Trump becoming the last president or becoming president here. So I had never really taken it this far. I'd never really taken it this far. When I was looking into all of this, some of this stuff was hard to find for a long time due to my military career. You're only capable or allowed to look into certain things. In the military, it's very compartmentalized, so not everybody knows everything, but yet everybody together knows everything. And so it kind of works like, I don't know, it just separates everyone in a way. You never really know the full story or details to any of this stuff. Looking back, having been out a while, I can kind of see, okay, yeah, that's what we were doing. All right, that's what we were talking. Oh, that's what they were talking about. Certain things back in the past kind of make more sense now that I've had more lived experience. The thing is, when it comes to a lot of this stuff that's going on in the world around us today, we often assume it's going to be the way we already imagine it to be. We assume all of these global events are going to end up being like the movies. And when they're not like the movies, we don't necessarily know that we're even experiencing some of these events. Some of this stuff's been going on. Some of this stuff's been happening. I mean, they're always listening. They're always watching. They can see everything we're doing, hear everything. I think now they can see inside of your house through your Wi-Fi signal. I think it emits so the signal, they can read it and watch it and look at it like a 3D rendition of your environment in your home. It's really crazy how deep into your lives the government really has stuck their nose. And a lot of people are really just oblivious to all of this. Even now, with all the YouTube and conspiracy theories out there in the world, it's fascinating that people still just have no idea anything is going on in the world. You mentioned inflation to some people, and it's what? Or they have an idea about it, but that's about it. It's really, it really is kind of hard to believe. Let's see. Let's catch back up. All right. Culticon says, I'm glad you are reading the narrative, Rev. You are better than the AI voice. Appreciate that, Culticon. All right. It says, I see I missed Blue Beans talk. Okay. Hard to believe that would come up. Pearl says, Rev, totally. That's why everyone's insight in this community is valuable. Our variety is the best asset we have. Absolutely. It is. We all have, everybody has a piece of this big picture. And I believe that. John Fry says, just as the apostles, we don't know the day or the hour, but we can see the signs of the times. Absolutely. Yes, we know when in a roundabout fashion. No one could ever really say positively, absolutely, right now, that's it. No other manner, no other way. Let me make sure I correct that right here on this chat. Sorry, I keep touching my mouth. I'm out of water and I don't want to get up yet. I will in a moment. All right, let's see. He says, I think they can do it using the cell service connection. I don't even need Wi-Fi. It's all RF sonar mapping. The community, and then Joffrey says, this community is really rolling. It's what the church should be. Absolutely. I agree, Joffrey. I agree. All right. All right, so we'll catch back up with the rest of the chat here in a little bit, but you guys by all means continue to carry on. I love it. Says right here, we've moved into a new global order. The rise of, oh yeah, I think I already read all that. I'm moving forward. See, I lost track of where I was. Um, as I'm moving forward, I asked it, can you bring back all the previous texts between you and I? And what I was referring to were a set of images that I was able to get it to create. So it couldn't do that, apparently. I asked it about the pictures it tried, and then it failed. So I had to just move on with it. I asked it if it could do a comprehensive breakdown of Ingersoll's The Last President. For anybody that would be interested in that, it's really interesting when you start seeing the connections between Ingersoll and other writers of that time period. They all kind of start falling off. They all kind of start doing what he's doing for a minute there, and then they all kind of start fading off and then moving into other things like oh gosh, I'm trying to think of these old stories, and there's nothing really that's just popping into mind that sounds fascinating. I'm thinking of like Tom Sawyer, I guess is what I'm thinking about. It kind of moved into that era for a moment there, is all I'm getting at as far as popularity in context of writing and storytelling. But Ingersoll wrote this book titled 1900 or The Last President. It's kind of like a slash, one or the other, whichever one you want to call it. And he wrote this in 1896. And in 2017, this kind of picked up. People started realizing it and noticing it. It's funny to me because without having someone pointed this out on the internet, no one would have ever picked up on this. I mean, someone in our day has had to have seen that book, ran across it or something, unless you lean on the theory that someone is meticulously feeding us information. It's one or the other though, because the same is true for like Tartaria, for example. No one was discussing Tartaria before 2019. I think, honestly, though, looking back into it, for me, what the reason Tartaria or the whole idea or concept of Tartaria stuck with me and clung to me is because I had already figured out through my study in some old maps and what you can find before 2019 was that a lot of the lands aren't where we think they are. And so I was kind of manipulating these maps to the best of my ability based on what the Bible is explaining as far as where these people moved around to and went and traveled. It's so funny to me because I figured out several of the tribes of Israel ended up in the Americas. I went down not a rabbit hole, but I was learning this and studying this, and what I figured what's so funny to me and fascinating. I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm trying to come up with the right words for it. It's just intriguing to me that in 2019, when Putin released all these Tartarian maps and documents, all of a sudden people started picking up on this. They start showing these maps that are talking about these, where these places are and where these people went and whatnot. And then just the other day, I noticed this lady's channel, and I'll pull that up here in just a second. Let me see if I can find it. I saw this lady's channel just the other day, and it was very fascinating to me. I don't know if I can find it in here. I have to make this way bigger. But so she goes over the Americas and how some of the people ended up in the Americas and whatnot. I'll pull that up. I'll find it. One of you probably already know who I'm talking about. But she's on episode 4 or whatever. And it's interesting how she's declaring the same stuff. So like I have to agree with what she's talking about. I think for me the issue becomes a matter of whether or not we today are still those same people we're reading about. And that came into this idea in my head where I said, well, maybe my timeline is wrong. So I had to rework it and get back to the point and to the plot of everything that's going on, as this thing says. Now, I'm not going to continue on with any further with that. I want to kind of get back to my Revelation series, but I wanted to interject with that about Trump. In order for there to be an event where Trump is the last president, it's going to be due to a state of martial law. That's the only real way that could happen. That's if our government persists and maintains throughout the duration of that. If the government fails, obviously there is no America. It is just the people. We are America. We are America. And I say it like that because I want to emphasize that point, because it's in a later episode, we're going to end up I'm going to go over some of these maps with you guys and show you how I figured where some of these people went and why I know that some of these people today are some of these people that may or may not be the people of the past. Revelation 20 really throws a wrench into all of your previous research whenever you get to that point. And anyone who's made it to the Little Season community and has found themselves researching and studying into the Little Season, then you know exactly where I'm coming from with that. That once you get to Revelation 20, it's like, whoa, what did I know? And what else do I not know? But the point of all that is, if we take, say, Greenland, for example, essentially that will be all you'll need is one American to place a residency there, and then it'll be part of our nation. And essentially you will have all the nations circling or surrounding the center. And you can call that what you want and make of it what you will. But in order to get there, there has to be either civil unrest in worldly proportions, or there has to be it. I don't know exactly what would go on in the rest of the world if America went into like a full-on civil war, but I imagine it'd be just like any other situation. They would move on with their lives and just change a little bit in their direction. That's if things keep going on the way they're going. The issue becomes whether or not we are going to get to just keep on going. And that's where all of this becomes important. because there are people here that are pretty decent people. I know people that I know call themselves Christian, and I know that they are decent, but maybe they're not good enough because of certain smaller or even large failures in their lives, bad choices that they may not have made had they known what it was really going to be like for them in the end, or how much time they had left. I mean, when you all right, so when you think about it and you get in it, you boil down to the nitty gritty of it, you realize that not everybody out there is intentional with their misdoings and wrong ways. I mean, they really believe the stuff that they've been taught, the things that they've been shown. It's where things like cognitive dissonance comes in. It's really difficult to escape past that and move forward. I wanted you to know that I want you all to know that regardless of what goes on, regardless of all of these events, what happens has nothing to do with us, with the ones that have found themselves searching for God, searching for the truth, searching for Jesus, searching for Yeshua, Yahweh. Anyone seeking Yahuwah, the Father in heaven. Anyone who's made it to that point in their life and have dedicated themselves to that, we don't have to worry about none of these events. You'll learn that as you read through Scripture, where it'll tell you, our Father is not the Father of fear. The reason a lot of the times the Israelites end up in turmoil is because of their lack of faith and trust in the Almighty. You have to have faith in Him. You have to know that just because He's telling you about bad things doesn't mean that those bad things are meant for you. This whole idea and concept that we're doom and gloomers over here in the Little Season community is just, it's unsettling and it's unreal. It's really kind of offensive because not only is it not true, it just tells me either you didn't read this book like you claim you have, or you don't know what you're talking about, and therefore you shouldn't be talking. You should be quiet and listen to the ones that have read this. Now, I know that may upset people saying it that way or whatever. I don't care. What I care about is that you understand what this thing says, that it tells you the truth, that when you read it, you go, oh, it has to be this, and it can't be anything else. That is the understanding of what the truth is. There is no your way, my way, or whatever way. There is no your truth or my truth when it comes to understanding the Scripture. Placing you anywhere within it when you don't belong in certain places there within it is what ends up corrupting this thing. And I heard this term earlier, and I don't know where I heard it, but they were basically explaining or saying that all doctrines are for the demons, are for the fallen angels. And when you think about it, it kind of makes some sense where they were going with all that. With that, the point is that as we read through Revelation, we get fixated on these events. We see where it says, and I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as the sun, and his feet pillars of fire. We read that and we go, wow, I mean, that's a fascinating image. I mean, it's amazing, and imagine how scary that would be to see that. And we stick to these, we cling to these visual images that we create from these words. Yes, this was fascinating. Yes, this was terrible. But just because it's telling you that doesn't mean it's going to be that way for you and me. And that's what people really need to understand whenever they read this whole book. It's written for you, not to you, and it's written by a loving God. Therefore, it shouldn't be confusing, and only certain people are smart enough to figure it out. It is simple. It is written like a children's book. And if you look at it like that, it really kind of shines a different light on everything. All the bad makes sense. All the judgments begin to make sense. And what we're about to experience is going to make sense once we read it and understand it. All right, let me catch back up with chat, and then I'll move on with chapter 10 here. It says, the horrors they went through, shiver, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Savage. Very much a label people use as leverage these days. And we have been conditioned to think the whole thing was written to us. That's what gives futurism some kind of foothold. Absolutely ain't buying it. Absolutely. It's like ain't buying it is reading my thoughts whenever he comments. Joffrey says, it's really nice not being part of the world when it comes to worries. Just a visitor passing through. Absolutely. A visitor passing through. You know, I think my frustration with it, with people out in the world, comes from the fact that I know it doesn't have to be what it's going to end up being for a lot of people. If they only knew the truth, if they only understood enough of it, it could change them. It could change their whole lives. And after being told to be quiet and keep your mouth shut and your words to yourself and don't talk about this and don't talk about that, and being told that for so many years, 42 years, and now I'm finally like, you know what? Everyone else is talking. It's my time. It's my turn to talk. Now I want you guys to hear and understand where I'm coming from, because I know for those that are new to this, and when they see me and they know me in real life and they go, oh, he's on YouTube, and they start watching, I say things that don't make sense whenever you read it, but whenever you hear it, maybe it does. So that's why I'm doing this. Part of why I'm doing this. I want to see everybody I know in the next reality of life, whatever that may be and however it may come. Everybody I don't know and all the people I wished I did know. That's what I want to see. I don't care to see the ones that don't care to see me. I don't care to see the ones that want to do bad. I would rather them not want that, though. It doesn't mean I don't still want what's best for them. But I understand where their place is going to be one day. They understand it too. And that's why they hate hearing what any of us have to say when it comes to this book. And we're the ones that they see, so we're the ones they take it out on. That's just something we have to overcome. It's part of enduring. That's all that is. And when you think of it in those simpler terms, it makes it easier to comprehend the right and wrong in almost anything you come into. Because it's almost like the truth is written on your heart. It's really amazing. All right, let's see. Let me catch back up here. Ruthless Savage says, let's see. I don't want to skip that yet. It says, all right. Ruthless Savage says, this woman was doing devotionals, has a cross on her wall, and right next to it, demonic gnomes. Shaking my head. Yeah, it's like, so you have that. That's right, Ruthless. That goes into that lukewarm category. You know, they're halfway in, halfway out. It's, you know, it's this illusion that you're going to be able to argue your case. And I think you will to a degree, you know, explain yourself. But regardless of what you say, I think that judgment's already made for a lot of people. I really do. And I hate that it is that way, because when you consider the amount of people that are in the world, or at least what they tell us is in the world. When you think about all of that, then it's like, man, you know, it's a lot of people. You know, and I hate it. I hate it for them. I really do. And sometimes I'll even say this when I'm at work riding around. I'll think to myself, you know, I don't even think I'm gonna make it. I don't think I'm good enough necessarily to make it. I feel like, in one way or another, I kind of feel like Lamech from the Lamech of Cain book. He realizes that, hey, it's time to do right. He starts doing right, but it's kind of too late. I kind of feel like that for myself sometimes. So ultimately, the goal is that none of these videos get removed, and one day my kids and grandkids can watch this and experience this and learn this, and not grow up being lost in this world, whatever this world may be. And that is if we continue on. However, we may not be able to continue on. But if I don't move on, we'll never make it through chapter 10. So it says in verse 2, and he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth. All that's telling you is that information is going to be available. He's about to let everyone know something. That's all it's telling you at that moment. Then it says, and cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roareth. And when he cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. And when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write. And I heard a voice from heaven, saying unto me, seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven. If you notice in verse 4, whatever it's talking about right there, no one up to this point is going to know anything about it. It's hidden. It's secret knowledge. It's rolled up and it's been sealed up. It's been sealed up, which are the 7 thunders, and write them not. Now, it doesn't give us time on that yet. But a lot of people will create these ideas and theories once they see this part and start generating ideas. At least for me, that's what I did. I ended up rabbit hole after rabbit hole. We're not supposed to do that, though. We're supposed to stop right there. You don't know no more. And move to the next line. It says, and the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that are therein are in the earth, the sea, and the things that which in it. It's, oh my God, that is hard to read. And the things that therein are, and the sea, and the things which therein, that there should be time no longer. All it's telling you at that moment is that when it's, well, in this prophecy here, what it's talking about is it's explaining that there is not going to be a time. It's going to be eternity. That's all it's saying. There's new, who created heaven and the things therein, and who created the earth and the things therein, and that are, and the sea and the things that are in the sea. Whoever swears by him will liveth forever. That is God. It's telling you God right there. For anyone that was ever questioning that, it's telling you the Father, the Most High, Whoever swears by him that liveth forever and ever, who created the heaven and the things therein, the earth and the things therein that are within it, that were and still are. That's basically what that's saying. And the sea and the things which are in it, and should be no time, no longer. They will live forever. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel. Here we go. So a moment ago in verse 6, that's future. It's telling you future. It's clarifying. This is all grammar stuff that they don't. I've realized what's happened in the church and why it's all confusing. They teach grammar in school, nowhere else. That's the problem. And then everybody learns it in school, and then they don't take it with them anymore. They leave it there. But in those days, or in the days of the voice of that seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants and the prophets. And the voice, first of all, I meant to say was that is telling you now we're back to that time. We're back in the present of whatever the audience would be, him, the writer. We're back in present time, prophecy-wise. And the voice which I heard from heaven spoke and spoken to me again and said, Go and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And the voice which I heard spoke from heaven, spoke to me again. He's talking, remember, he's in the spirit. Go and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And when I went unto the angel and said unto him, Give me the little book, and he said unto me, Take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in the mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey, and as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. Now, someone probably already knows where I'm going with this next statement, but it's that when it was talking about that bitter taste in his belly and it tasting kind of like honey, man, I've tried my best to figure out what that could be. I just haven't quite figured it out yet. What tastes really sweet in the mouth and is bitter in the belly? I'm thinking it's like some type of plant. I'm not exactly sure exactly what that is. But regardless, I can't remember. I written down some rabbit hole, and they had found a plant that I think mimics this, or whatever it does, but you get like really high off of it apparently. But regardless, only reason I'm even bringing that up and pointing that out is that's where, this will lead people into those rabbit holes. It's not one you have to travel down or that you need to. Remember, this is for those that may be new to all of this. But yeah, like he said in verse 11, and he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. Boom. Like I said, all of that before up to this point has nothing. Some of it's happened, some of it's about to, some of it hasn't happened. And it's telling you prophetically, he's just giving him a vision of the future. He's letting him know that he's going to go prophesy again before many peoples and nations, tongues, and kings. And the reason it's telling him that right now is so that you, the reader, can understand that he's still got to go out there and tell everybody that this is going on. He has to get these letters written to these other churches, these 7 churches. He has to get all those letters written and sent out. He has to get this message out to the people. Nothing is going to happen without God telling you it's going to happen, if God is the one that perpetrates the event. If it rains outside, it's because God made it rain, obviously, but it's just a rain cloud. It's just rain. There's nothing really significant to that. But when it comes to these major events, these biblical events are not man-made. A lot of what's going on in the world around us today is man-made events. It's not real. Some of it's real, some of it's not real, and most of it's probably not even real. I don't want to go too far into where my brain was going with all of that. Maybe I'll share those thoughts another day. All right. Revelation 11. It says, "And there was given to me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months." Now, if you're in this community, you watched JT Follows JC and Demon Slayers earlier, and they were actually talking about this word Gentiles. I don't want to talk about it tonight because I feel like I'm copying from them, but they're right about this word Gentiles. It does come from the root word is giant. That's where that comes from. And so it is interesting that they called them Gentiles or gentlemen. And a lot of people don't understand these lineages, these pre-Jesus lineages, and how they worked into some of these narratives. A lot of the belief behind the Nephilim influence within certain other, I guess, bloodlines separate from Seth, or even separate from the Israelites, the Hebrew people, would be the idea that Cain is the half or the offspring of not just Eve, but of the angel Godriel or Lucifer, Satan, whatever you want to call him. But he's not the son biological to Adam. I don't necessarily know, though, that Adam would have been aware of that necessarily, or at least not at first. Maybe over time he probably would have figured it out if that were the case. Whether or not that's true, I don't think's relevant. Like I said before, all those people were judged already, or at least we know they were killed in the flood and up until this point. And this is going from Genesis up to Revelation 11. Look, go lay down. Go lay down. Lay down. I'll let you out in a little bit. All right. So what I was saying was that they end up, all I'm saying with that is that there's no reason at this moment to believe anyone other than those from the line of Seth or even Shem will get resurrected, with the exception of the post-flood people. Maybe no one pre-flood. I mean, when you really think about it, God was willing to destroy his entire creation over those pre-flood people. He barely allowed one family to live. I mean, it's not like, I don't know why they would be back. I don't know why he would give them an opportunity to come back. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I can see why people would lean on that sometimes. Anyhow, in Revelation chapter 11, verse 2, it says, verse 3, it says, "And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, And they shall prophesy 1,260 days. That's 1,203 days, or 300 or 30 days, clothed in sackcloth. It's either 3 days or 30 days. It doesn't matter. That part don't matter necessarily. But it says, and I will give my power unto two witnesses. And these are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before God on earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceeded out of their mouth and devoured their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in their manner be killed. My only problem with this, and really, is that people will, I don't know, it's like people want this to happen. I think, obviously, looking at it in a YouTube video or watching it on the news or something, it'd be really interesting to see that, these two witnesses out there. But the truth is, if it's bad enough to the point where those fellas are here, you've already experienced a lot. And so I don't necessarily know that you even want those fellas here. The point is, I don't know how we're the doom and gloomers. These guys are pretty awesome on the superhero level, the side of it, but it's devastating, the power that they have, is all I'm saying. And I don't see why they wouldn't have had to use that power. It says, if any man will hurt them, fire proceeded out of their mouth and devoured their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. So regardless of what they do, they get burned up. You can't you can't do nothing to these two witnesses. At least that's up to this point. They're unkillable. They're unkillable. Says, at least up to this point, it says, these have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. Doom and gloomers, I say, doom and gloomers, and when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. You see, for those in the Little Season community, you may understand this. Those who are new to all this, you may not know what I'm going at with this yet. But when it says there, and when they shall finish their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. The reason I'm pointing that out is, the reason I know we're not going to see these two witnesses in our day is because they were killed at the end of Jesus's millennial kingdom. And you'll see that it'll be more clear as we move on, as we move forward. But that's when they were killed. And it says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Gomorrah, and Egypt, not Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. And they of the people and kindreds, yeah, that's right, I did say it right. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3.5 and shall not, 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. In other words, these witnesses, the minute they died, they were buried immediately. I mean, they didn't waste no time. They didn't wait at all. As soon as they died, people went and got them and buried them. All I'm saying, it was a hasty burial, a hasty funeral type of thing. It was important that they did this for them. It was a matter of respect, if you really want to get down to it. But that's why they were doing that. It says, and then they dwell upon the earth. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Chronologically, this is all supposed to be happening at the end of the millennial kingdom. Like it's directly in its end. So this wouldn't be happening during the tribulation. We've passed that point already, but we're still in prophecy mode here. He hasn't gone out and he hasn't talked to anybody yet. He's still in prophecy mode. All right, where was I? Let's see. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. What it's talking about is the rapture. This is what all Christians are waiting to happen. This happens at the end of the millennial kingdom. The 1,000 years ends. That's when this happens. That is what it's telling you. But if you didn't understand that the timeline deception, you wouldn't necessarily understand that yet. You wouldn't be able to pick up on that yet. That's for the newbies to all of this. All right. So it says here, and in the same hour was there. Oh, I'm just to clarify. And then when it says, Come up hither, they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. So people saw this happening. In other words, this didn't just happen to everybody. There were people down here. Oh man, they're leaving us. Come back, come back. Oh, it's too late. Well, start over. All right. Then it goes on and it says, and they heard a great voice from heaven. And the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the tenth part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted, and gave glory to the God of heaven. This is your mud floods. This is what happened. This is what it's telling you. It's telling you what happens at the end of the millennial season. This is at the end of the millennial kingdom. This is what's going to happen. This is why your buildings are sunk. It's telling you that right here. The 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake. Well, first it says there was a great earthquake, and then they fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were frightened, and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe come quickly. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven, saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven. The kingdoms of this world, all the kingdoms, that's every place, every nation, every group of people of this world, are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders which sat before God on their seats fell upon their faces and worshipped God. The 40 looks like 420 elders. All right, so it says the seventh angel, and there are great voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders which sat before God on their seats fell upon their faces and worshiped God. Now, we haven't seen a new heaven and new earth yet, so the problem is we'll have some people already envision that that's what's going to happen. He's going to come here and we're just going to redo everything that we got going on. It's just going to be another reset. It's all it's going to be. That's what ends up happening with all of that. All right. Moving on, it says, saying, we give thanks. We give thanks, O Lord God Almighty, which art and was and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and does reign. That's what that has reign, does reign, and hast reigned. It's did reign. That's what I meant. Did, not does, did reign. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come in the time of the dead, that they should be judged. And the nations were angry. They were, and thy wrath is come. That's talking about God's wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small like cage fighter, and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. All the nations are angry. This is after the loosing of Satan. That's what it's talking about here. This whole chapter 11 so far has given us 3 timelines, 3 different time periods. For people that have a hard time with grammar and understanding when and how to read audience relevance, that's all that's for. And I'm not trying to undermine anyone by saying that, but because I'm a victim of all that as well. It's just the same as everyone. All right, good night, Brother John. I see you might have to get up early. Well, good night, Brother John. Love you, brother. Good to see you here. I hope to see you again. And man, I can't wait till we get that OBS going on that laptop of yours. All right, now let's see. It says right here, and the nations were angry. Oh yeah, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead. Future events. The time of the dead. Now it's mentioned them. All it's doing is just letting you know, hey, I wrote this for a reason. Look at that. But don't cling to it yet. It hasn't. That's why it didn't tell you anything more than that. It needs you to know exactly what he wants you to think. That's why it's written the way it's written. And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and earthquakes and great hail. All of these events are post-millennial kingdom, like right at the end of the little season, like beginning of the little season, the end of the millennial kingdom. That's what all of this. It hasn't gotten to us yet. We are not in this yet. We're going to get to us later on, and I believe we get to us in the next chapter or 2, which we're going to pick up on those chapters Thursday from 8 to 10 Central Time. I know it'll be different for different time zones, but that's what I'm trying to stick with right now. And if I'm being real honest with you guys, I'm really kind of getting to the point where I want to kind of go another night. So I may try to figure out a way to incorporate something for a third night of the week where I'm not necessarily going over my series. Maybe I'll do a different series or something like that. Maybe we'll do a different type of talk or whatever we have. But anyhow, getting back to all of that, what I'm showing you here as we read through this thing is if we take this thing, read it line upon line and precept upon precept, we have to understand how these people are writing, the context, the grammar, the punctuation, the where the commas go, where the periods go, when it moves from this page to that page or from this line to that line. And a lot of times we don't think about our grammar being bad because it's just the way we talk or it's just the way we write or we're used to that already, and we don't think maybe that even makes it bad grammar. But what it does do is we're not reading it from the grammar perspective of these writers, is all I'm saying. And when we read it from the way that whoever's penning this, we read it from their lens, then we can see where it says or where it's telling us to stop, think, stop, move, stop, go back, stop, right here, look at that. It tells you. It's like these patterns to me when I'm reading this. I'm reading this and it's like it's being as I'm reading it, to me it's like God or Jesus is standing in my face saying, "Look, listen, dummy. It's not that complicated. Quit thinking about whatever it is you're thinking about and come back to this book and read me and see what I'm trying to tell you. Listen to what I'm trying to tell you." That's what it's line upon line, precept upon precept. That's what all that means. And so as we continue forward through this series and Revelation series, I'm going to try to help show you guys what led me to this little season in Revelation, reading all that. What led me to believe that that's where we are is chapter 20, verse 7, chapter 20 in Revelation. And I find it fascinating that these Tartarian maps have come out now, and you see all this stuff, and it's like, man, it's almost like why I don't know. I don't see the winning move in any of the reasons for the deceptions. It just doesn't make sense to me, especially when you read this and you learn that they don't win. It's not good for the other team. The Jesus team is the only team that's going to win. I hope for the ones that are misled, the ones that are misinformed and are confused about what this book really says, but love Jesus anyways, still believe in him, still have faith in him. I hope that their works and their faith is good enough for God to take them in and allow them to pass through that white throne of judgment. Just as much as I want that same glorification for all of you, for everybody, even all the bad ones. Not that I want them to be still bad, but for them to have a change of heart, even those that know me personally in life. All of that said, I know I usually do 2 hours, but somehow I did move through this pretty quick, and I think a lot of that has to do with me not stopping as often to talk to chat. I don't want you guys to think that I'm not paying attention to chat if I do miss the what you say. If I feel like it's something that's necessary for everyone to hear, I'll definitely try to read that. And even the stuff that maybe I don't think is necessary, I will still try to read it. But if I don't read all of chat, I apologize. I don't mean to miss out on anything anyone is saying. But I will be honest with you. I'm one of those weird ones that'll listen to my own video again, but not because I'm just enamored with my own voice, because I like to see what you guys are talking about. And in order for me to keep up with what you guys are talking about, I have to know what I'm talking about in the video to kind of keep up with it. So that's kind of why I do that. But regardless, I do like looking back and seeing what you guys had to say. I hope I didn't lose too many people with the Chat GPT thing, and I hope that I don't scare anyone away with that. I'm not leaning on Chat GPT with anything or any of these understandings, thoughts, or ideas. But I have helped used it to help figure out some things or to help clarify some things. For those that really are kind of nerd or tech savvy and kind of understand this stuff a little bit better, you kind of understand how it works and why there's not as many reasons to be afraid of it as people think. However, that doesn't mean there aren't reasons to be afraid of it. It's a device, a tool. And anything created in this world is a tool or a device. And any device created by a man or woman can be used to deceive you. Even the church, even the Bible, even everything we have been given can be used to deceive you. So you have to have levels of discernment. For me, it's sharpening iron. Listening to the Cult of Khan, listening to JT Follows JC, listening to Understanding Conspiracy, listening to Jason Jack, listening to all of these content creators who are reading, researching, and studying the same information and material. I listen to them and I go, okay, yeah, I agree with that. I see that. I understand that. Yeah, I read that. It's iron sharpening iron. And though we're not having a direct conversation, I get it. It makes sense to me that we're sharpening each other. We're keeping each other sharp. You guys keep me sharp. And I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate everybody in this community. And I appreciate all the ones that are out there researching and making this wonderful content for all of us to enjoy. This little season community is a big deal. My predictions with it, though, are that this is going to end up getting rid of the church. I don't see how the church can survive this without there being necessarily an adaptation of it into the church. But the way things are in society and the world around us, this whole understanding, I think, is going to change everything. And I think ultimately that's the reason why most of all of this information has been kept secret from us, hidden from us, and not been made publicly available. And as it's being made available, we're picking it up and figuring this stuff out. And it's almost like kind of maybe they don't know some things and they need us to figure this stuff out. Like I said, you take someone like Jason Jack and they post a video on anything that he's researched. It could be that the people that allowed him to see that information and learn that information didn't understand it themselves and needed Jason Jack. The point I'm trying to make is I need all of you the same as any of you need me, if that's even a thing. And with that said, I want to let you guys know that I am so blessed and humbled that each and every one of you guys have made it here tonight. Exactly. Dan Hunter says people read your Bibles, but study Revelation and watch for the signs. People are so resistant to even look at it and laugh at what we say. You're absolutely right. That's from Ain't Buying It. And Joffrey says it's pretty cool how they did that stupid goat demon at the door thing for us. Yeah, that's funny. That is funny. All right. Yep. And Spirit of Truth, Wendy says it's her bedtime as well. And Pearl, I see you were still here, and Ruthless Savage. You guys have all been a great audience. You guys have been amazing and awesome. I'm glad you guys have been here with me, and so far nobody's had to fuss at me yet and correct me on what I'm talking about on any of this. But I'm sure that time will come, and I hope you guys are here for that when we do make it through those hurdles, so that you can see we can do all this together. There's no reason that any of us have to walk alone. We can walk together. You guys have been awesome. You guys are amazing. I love each and every one of you. I know people just say that, but I do. I really do mean that. You guys are the best. Till next time.